94.5 FM, Salford City Radio, the Friday sports show. Your host, Jimmy Petruzzi, in news from local area and around the world. And today we have a very fascinating guest who is going to give us a bit of an insight into body insecurities and tackling embarrassment. And it's a big area, really. We've sort of kind of touched on this area before in sports as well. And it does have an impact, certainly, in sports participation, that's for sure. We've spoken to many world-class athletes on the show. They've sort of talked about how that affects sports people, but obviously outside the world of sport, there's a lot of people out there who have got concerns as well. So today we have a fascinating guest who's going to give us more of an insight, Dr Soma, a dermatologist and Instagram influencer. So great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on board.
Oh, thanks so much for having me and talking about an issue that affects so many of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So looking at the research from the UK, it says that out of 10 women suffer from skin concerns, underarm skin concerns. Can you give a bit more of an insight in terms of what are these concerns that they have and how does it impact them?
Sure, absolutely. So Dove has done a piece of research that indicates that 8 out of 10 women suffer some sort of underarm skin issue, and then 2 out of 3 are self-conscious, so that's a huge amount. And 2 out of 3 will then conceal their underarms as a result. So This is an issue that affects many people in terms of having to conceal their underarms and feeling self-conscious about it. Yeah,
and I mean, it also suggests that 3 out of 4 wouldn't feel comfortable, I should say, discussing these issues with friends and family. I mean, what sort of impact do you think that has, sort of not talking about it as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people don't talk about something, it just festers and becomes more and more of a problem. And especially now where we're having nicer weather, it might affect, the clothes that you wear. So you might, be looking at things in your wardrobe and saying, oh, I used to love this top, I'm not going to wear it anymore, or I won't go to the beach today because I will have to wear a swimsuit and have my underarms in show. And because the underarms are something that traditionally is kept private, I think it's concealed by our outer arms. I think sometimes people feel like they have to have their posture in a certain way to continue to hide it and not play sport or just not enjoy the activities they normally might.
And obviously, sort of, like you mentioned there, the weather now is getting warm and sort of people try and get out and about as well. And I mean, one of the things I read through here talked about how social media and the expectations around body image, obviously sort of in the field of psychology is well documented that, young girls do have these expectations around body image. But what sort of impact does that have, do you think, sort of, and the expectations on social media? Because obviously social media these days, not that I'm an expert on sort of photoshopping and that sort of stuff, but I'm sure that, people obviously sort of put the best version of themselves on there. What's the big impact you think that has on people in general and young girls?
Yeah, I think we know from research that the more time people spend on social media, then the more their self-esteem is affected in a negative way. And you do tend to see one specific type of beauty standard image consistently when you're on social media. Yeah. And when it comes to armpits, you'll often see something that's completely hairless with a uniform skin tone that looks airbrushed and perfect, when the reality is people have hair, they've got stubble. It's an area that naturally can be sweaty or smelly. And part of Dove did this research and saw how staggering the statistics are, how much it's affecting people, and then they've launched a campaign to showcase the diversity of armpits, which I think is great because we really do need variety of representation to combat what's going on in social media. So you can look up at the campaign. It's called the Arms Up series, and it's basically photographs of 16 different people with a variety of armpit lengths, armpit hair lengths, armpit sizes, and skin types, and you just get to see and normalize the diversity that's out there, so you get more than that perfect image that you're constantly bombarded with.
Absolutely, and obviously sort of highlighting the importance and championing and supporting healthiness of women's bodies. And can you give us sort of more of an insight in terms of where some of our listeners, I mean, you've mentioned sort of there, but maybe is there anywhere they can sort of go specifically to sort of find out more about what you do and some of the some information in terms of being able to access and read more about?
Yeah, I think it's always about sort of finding positive spaces, because social media also has positive aspects as well. Is that there are many health professionals on there trying to educate. So I have a social media page, Dr Soma Skin, where I try to talk about what is normal about skin and also ways to look after your skin. So I think, and there are many professionals on there that are from psychiatry or psychology backgrounds, that are from skincare backgrounds, that are trying to talk about how to look after yourself in a healthy way as opposed to being preoccupied with a beauty standard, because those two are not the same necessarily. Yeah,
absolutely.
Practicing self-love is easier said than done, but is important.
No, absolutely. And like, is there any sort of, I know obviously everyone's sort of different subjectively, everyone's sort of, you know, in their own sort of, it's not easy to give any sort of advice, but I suppose is there any sort of tips how maybe sort of any sort of women listening can sort of keep their underarms healthy as we, like in the height of summer at the moment? Can you maybe offer any sort of suggestions, Dr. Soma?
Sure. So just because of where the armpit is, it's two surfaces that rub against each other, and it's also an area full of glands that have hairs, glands that produce sweat. So it creates kind of a moist environment, and you have a lot of friction. So those things can really create trauma and injury and inflammation at a small level. So it's really important to look after your underarm skin, because it is skin like the rest of your body. So you want to choose ingredients that are very nourishing, something. So I know the new Dove deodorant has put that at the forefront. They've got vitamin E, omega-6, and glycerin in there. So you want to just use skincare in your underarm. You want to then, if you are doing hair removal practices, whether it's shaving, waxing, or laser, you know, you don't have to. You can embrace a hairy pit if that's your vibe. But equally, if you are doing hair removal practices, you want to make sure your razor is clean and changed regularly. I can't tell you how many bathrooms I've been in and I've seen rusty, very old used razors. I think we're probably all guilty of it sometimes. Regardless, men or women, change your razors frequently. If you are going to get laser hair removal or waxing, go somewhere that is clean and reputable. Don't necessarily go to the cheapest deal that you find. It can have consequences, you know.
Absolutely, no, absolutely, definitely. But it's really interesting stuff, to be fair. So I really want to thank you for coming aboard the show. It's been really interesting and informative, no doubt, for our listeners as well. And obviously they can sort of, check out your work as well. And thanks for joining us, Dr. Soma. It's really, really interesting speaking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.